Welcome back. Today we are drawing Robert Frost. Join me. Robert Frost, 1874 to 1963, was an American poet who is widely regarded as one of the most prominent and significant literary figures of the 20th century. Frost was a master of traditional verse forms, including blank verse and sonnets, and he was known for his use of rural settings and ordinary, everyday language in his poetry. Throughout his long and prolific career, Frost won 4 Pulitzer Prizes and became a popular and beloved figure in American literary circles. Frost was born in San Francisco, California, but he spent most of his childhood in New England. He attended Dartmouth College for a short time before dropping out and working various jobs, including as a teacher and a newspaper reporter. In 1912, he moved his family to England, where he met and befriended several prominent literary figures, including Ezra Pound and Edward Thomas. It was during this time that Frost began to write poetry in earnest and to develop his distinctive style. Frost's early poetry was characterized by a focus on nature and rural life, as well as by a willingness to experiment with traditional forms. His first book of poetry, A Boy's Will, was published in 1913 and was well received by critics. His second book, North of Boston, which included the now famous poems, Mending Wall, and The Death of the Hired Man, was published in 1914 and solidified Frost's reputation as a major poet. In 1915, Frost returned to the United States, where he became a professor of English at Amherst College. Over the next few decades, he continued to publish poetry and to win accolades for his work. His poems often explored the complexities of human relationships, the tensions between tradition and innovation, and the mysteries of nature and existence. Many of his most famous poems, such as The Road Not Taken and Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, are celebrated for their accessible language and their ability to evoke powerful emotions. In addition to his work as a poet, Frost was also a beloved public figure. He frequently gave readings and lectures, and he was known for his wit and charm. He also played a key role in shaping American poetry during the first half of the 20th century. Along with other poets such as Wallace Stevens and T.S. Eliot, Frost helped to move poetry away from the ornate and formal style of the 19th century and toward a more colloquial and accessible mode of expression. Frost's later years were marked by a series of personal tragedies, including the death of his wife and several of his children. Nevertheless, he continued to write and to publish poetry until his death in 1963. In addition to his 4 Pulitzer Prizes, Frost was also awarded the Congressional Gold Medal and the Ballinger Prize for Poetry. Today, he is widely regarded as one of the greatest American poets of all time, and his work continues to be celebrated and studied by scholars, students, and poetry lovers around the world. In conclusion, Robert Frost was an American poet who achieved great success and acclaim during his long and prolific career. His poetry is known for its focus on nature and rural life, its use of traditional forms, and its ability to evoke powerful emotions in readers. Frost played a key role in shaping American poetry during the first half of the 20th century, and his work continues to be celebrated and studied today. Now 10 interesting Robert Frost facts. Number 1. He received 4 Pulitzers for his poetry and a U.S. Congressional Gold Medal. John F. Kennedy awarded Frost the U.S. Congressional Gold Medal in 1960 for his contribution to the culture of the United States. He is one of only 4 individuals to have also won 4 Pulitzer Prizes for his poetry collections in 1924, 1931, 1937, and 1943. Number 2. He was the first poet to address a U.S. presidential inauguration. John F. Kennedy had a personal relationship with Robert Frost, and the poet had helped create momentum to elect Kennedy during his campaign. Kennedy chose Frost to recite a poem at his inauguration, and he intended on reading a new poem entitled Dedication. In the end, he could not read his poem due to snow, sun, and faltering eyesight, and instead recited from memory the gift outright. Number 3. When his future wife first refused his marriage proposal, he contemplated suicide. Robert Frost attended high school with his future wife Eleanor White. After selling his first poem, Frost excitedly proposed marriage to Eleanor, who was studying in college at the time. Eleanor was intent on finishing college first and refused, but would later accept his second proposal after she had graduated. Number 4. He was named after Confederate General Robert E. Lee. Frost was born in San Francisco to William Prescott Frost, Jr. and Isabel Moody. Both of his parents were teachers, but after moving to San Francisco his father became a journalist. The Frost parents decided to honor the Confederate General Robert E. Lee by naming their son Robert Lee Frost. Number 5. English publishers first recognized his poetic talent. While writing his poetry, Frost worked as a farmer, and then as an English teacher in America to support himself. Finding only limited success and resistance from publishers, Frost moved to England believing British publishers would be more receptive to his work. It was a gamble that paid off when his first book of poetry was published in England in 1913. Number 6. The poet's life was marred by a series of tragedies. There was no limit to the grief Frost endured in his lifetime. He lost his father to tuberculosis when he was 11, and his mother to cancer when she was just 26. His younger sister died in a mental hospital, and his wife Eleanor suffered from cancer then died due to heart failure. He outlived 4 of the 6 children he fathered with Eleanor. Number 7. The epitaph on his gravestone is taken from his poem, The Lesson for Today. It is unclear if Frost intended The Lesson for Today to be used as the epitaph on his gravestone. It was presented to the public on June 20, 1941 and included in the collection A Witness Tree in 1942. The last 2 lines of the poem read, "I would have written of me on my stone. I had a lover's quarrel with the world." Number 8. He was a valedictorian of his high school class. Despite the tragic loss of his father, Robert Frost was an excellent student. He went to high school in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Both he and his future wife Eleanor White were co-valedictorians in the 1892 graduating class. Number 9. He died from complications with surgery. Robert Frost was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 1962. In the same year he went through an extensive surgery. He died due to complications from that surgery in 1963. Number 10. He is regarded as one of the most popular 20th-century poets. Robert Frost's poetry earned him immense recognition and appreciation from readers worldwide. He lived his life as a champion of naturalism and the arts. His poetry is accessible for all ages, yet contains a deeper layer that questions mortality and the human condition. I am gonna recite Frost's most famous poem. Forgive me if I butcher it. The Road Not Taken. By Robert Frost. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. And sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood. And looked down one as far as I could. To where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair. And having perhaps the better claim. Because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Mending Wall. By Robert Frost. Something there is that doesn't love a wall. That sends the frozen ground swell under it. And spills the upper boulders in the sun. And makes gaps even 2 can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair. Where they have left not one stone on a stone. But they would have the rabbit out of hiding. To please the yelping dogs. The gaps I mean. No one has seen them made or heard them made. But at spring mending time we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill. And on a day we meet to walk the line. And set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go. To each the boulders that have fallen to each. And some are loaves and some so nearly balls. We have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side. It comes to little more. There where it is we do not need the wall. He is all pine and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across. And eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out. And to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall. That wants it down. I could say, elves, to him. But it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather. He said it for himself. I see him there. Bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top. In each hand, like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness as it seems to me. Not of woods only and the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying. And he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors. Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. By Robert Frost. Whose woods these are I think I know. His house is in the village though. He will not see me stopping here. To watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer. To stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake. The darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake. To ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep. Of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. But I have promises to keep. And miles to go before I sleep. And miles to go before I sleep. The following is a list of poems by Robert Frost. Into My Own. Ghost. My November Guest. Love and a Question. A Late Walk. Stars. Storm Fear. Wind and Window Flower. To the Thawing Wind. A Prayer in Spring. Flower Gathering. Rose Pogonias. Asking for Roses. Waiting afield at dusk. In a Veil. A Dream Pang. In Neglect. The Vantage Point. Mowing. Going for Water. Revelation. The Trial by Existence. In Equal Sacrifice. The Tuft of Flowers. Spoils of the Dead. Pan with Us. The Demiurge's Laugh. Now Close the Windows. A Linestorm Song. October. My Butterfly. Reluctance. The Pasture. Mending Wall. The Death of the Hired Man. The Mountain. 100 Collars. Home Burial. The Black Cottage. Blueberries. A Servant to Servants. After Apple Picking. The Code. The Generations of Men. The Housekeeper. The Fear. The Self-Seeker. The Woodpile. Good Hours. The Road Not Taken. Christmas Trees. An Old Man's Winter Night. The Exposed Nest. A Patch of Old Snow. In the Home Stretch. The Telephone. Meeting and Passing. Hyla Brook. The Oven Bird. Bond and Free. Birches. Pea Brush. Putting in the Seed. A Time to Talk. The Cow in Apple Time. An Encounter. Range finding. Cranberries at noon. The hill wife. The bonfire. A girl's garden. Locked out. The last word of a blue bird. Out, out dash. Brown's descent, or the willy-nilly slide. The gum gatherer. The line gang. The vanishing red. Snow. The sound of trees. Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Fire and ice. The aim was song, too. The need of being versed in country things. The moon. I will sing you one. Paul's wife. For once, then, something. The onset. To look at two. Nothing gold can stay. New Hampshire. Misgiving. The axe helve. The grindstone. The witch of Coos. The pauper witch of Grafton. A star in a stone boat. The star splitter. In a disused graveyard. Fragmentary blue. A brook in the city. On a tree fallen across the road, to hear us talk. Gathering leaves. To earthward. Spring pools. The freedom of the moon. The rose family. Fireflies in the garden. Atmosphere. Devotion. Acquainted with the night. Ongoing unnoticed. The cocoon. A passing glimpse. A peck of gold. Acceptance. Once by the Pacific. Lodged. A minor bird. Bereft. Tree at my window. The peaceful shepherd. The thatch. A winter Eden. The flood. Acquainted with the night. The lovely shall be choosers. West running brook. Sand dunes. Canis Major. A soldier. Immigrants. Hannibal. The flower boat. The times table. The investment. The last mowing. The birthplace. The door in the dark. Dust in the eyes. Sitting by a bush in broad sunlight. The armful. What 50 said. Writers. On looking up by chance at the constellations. The bear. The egg and the machine. A lone striker. Two tramps in mud time. The white-tailed hornet. A blue ribbon at Amesbury. A drumlin woodchuck. The gold Hesperide. In time of cloudburst. A roadside stand. Departmental. The old barn at the bottom of the fogs. On the hearts beginning to cloud the mind. The figure in the doorway. At Woodward's Gardens. A record stride. Lost in heaven. Desert places. Leaves compared with flowers. A leaf treader. On taking from the top to broaden the base. They were welcome to their belief. The strong are saying nothing. The master speed. Moon compasses. Neither out far nor in deep. Voice ways. Design. On a bird winging in its sleep. After flakes. Clear and colder. Unharvested. There are roughly zones. A trial run. Not quite social. Provide. Precaution. The span of life. The rights biplane. Assertive. Evil tendencies cancel. Pertinax. Waspish. One guess. The hardship of accounting. Not all there. In dives dive. The vindictives. The Andes. The bearer of evil tidings. The Himalayas. Iris by night. The Malverns. Build soil. To a thinker. The gift outright. The most of it. Come in. All revelation, too. A considerable speck. The silken tent. Happiness makes up in height for what it lacks in length. The subverted flower. The lesson for today. The discovery of the Madeiras. Of the stones of the place. Never again would bird song be the same. To a moth seen in winter. Pod of the milkweed. Away. A cabin in the clearing. Closed for good. America is hard to see. One more brevity. Escapist, never. For John F. Kennedy his inauguration. Accidentally on purpose. A never not song. Version. A concept self-conceived. Forgive, O Lord. Kitty Hawk. Auspex. The draft horse. Ends. Peril of hope. Questioning faces. Does no one at all ever feel this way in the least? The bad island, Easter. Our doom to bloom. The objection to being stepped on. A wishing well. How hard is it to keep from being king when it's in you and in the situation? Lines written in dejection on the eve of a great success. The Milky Way is a cowpath. Some science fiction. Quandary. A reflex. In a glass of cider. From iron. Four-room shack. But outer space. On being chosen poet of Vermont. We vainly wrestle. It takes all sorts. In winter in the woods. Directive. Skeptic. Etherealizing. Why wait for science? An unstamped letter in our rural letterbox. Choose something like a star. Dust of snow. That's a lot of poems. Which one's your favorite? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share with friends and family. Consider subscribing, it's free. That's all for today. Until next time, you know what to do.